We're live. I see the little blue button up there lets me know that we're here and welcome. My name is Marilyn Shannon and this is SkyWire, and I welcome you here today with all of my lovely SkyWire friends in the film strip. We're happy to be here. We're here every single Thursday, pretty much, unless it's a holiday, and we're listening to ourselves and we're saying, no, we're not going to be there today. We're going to just take that holiday break. So we're here today. Our topic is about listening to, in, for, whatever word you want to put there, the pause. And before we get started, I want to introduce our phenomenal panel in our film strip, our phenomenal family, friends, listeners. They're going to tell you who they are and just a minute about who they are. And then we're going to get into the juicy conversation that we always do. Please, I welcome you always to comment, ask questions, share whatever you like. During the show, we've got some help in there. We'll pull them up. We want to hear from all of you. Even though you all can't be in the film strip with us, you're in this universe with us. And we want this world to be big, and we want this conversation to be the biggest conversation there is about listening. So with that, let me start with Heidi. Heidi, you ready to say who you are?
Yeah, I'm ready to say who you are. I'm Heidi, or my original name is Adelheid Hörnlein. I'm German, living in Italy. And I'm a person who is dedicated to really finally wake up as a woman and take over leadership and go out into the world and to fulfill my mission. And what I do for that, many things. I did many things in my life, and I'm in the moment to integrate all these things and to create something beautiful out of it. I hope so, at least. So for me.
And if I think, I don't know about anybody else, but I'm having a little hard time hearing you, so you might want to turn up your volume a little bit. Elaine, welcome back, Elaine.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. I'm Elaine Nieberding. I'm hanging out from Bel Air, Maryland. I spell that Merryland. And what I'm led to say today, introducing myself, is I am here today receiving blessing and bestowing blessing with all my sisters.
Cool. Thank you. Maybe one day you'll have a brother in here.
Sometimes they show up, in which case I would be saying sisters and brothers.
Absolutely. So brothers, if you want to be in this film strip with us, we'd love to have you. Gail.
Hi everybody, I'm Gail Harris, and I'm a writer and an author, and I love writing about the benefits of connecting with our spirituality and everyday life, which has a lot to do with listening. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation today about the pause and where that idea came from, Marilyn. I'm actually taking a pause right now myself, so it's very apropos to me. Glad to be here.
Cool. Thank you. It's always lovely to have you in that beautiful blue shirt today, so thanks for being here.
Sure.
And Katrina.
Hi there. Good morning to everyone. I'm really excited to be here today because a large part of what I like to talk about is creativity. And in creativity, you have to have a pause. So in terms of what my passion is I really love helping people connect to that spark within them and helping them express that creative love world. I do that by using my empathic skills and my writing skills and teaching.
And you do it and I would have to say Katrina writes well, but she also expresses herself verbally very well. So I always love to hear from her. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Marguerite, hey.
Yay! I'm so glad to be back here. I had such a good time last week. And who am I? I am Margarita. That's the basic thing. And Margarita means pearl or jewel. I didn't know that. But later in life, I found my passion, and that was crystals and healing. So I'm all about healing, and I have a new program called the Your Healing Journey, and I think that in order to have a journey of your own healing, one does have to stop, take a pause, and actually figure out what one wants, because otherwise we can't heal the issues that complicate our life. That's who
Love
I
it.
am.
Perfect. And we need that. We need you out there, right? And she's always taking care of she calms me down before the shows and after the shows. And so, who are you besides a calmer downer?
And I can't imagine me being that. Sheila Hensley, I am in Memphis, Tennessee, where we just discussed that people are very concerned about the possibility it will not reach 40 degrees today. And I think that's just funny when some of the other parts of the nation are just being snowed under. Glad to be here with y'all today. I will be assisting with the technology, my comment tracker, and listening to my favorite ladies teach me how to pause. I'm not sure that I do or know what it is. So I'm very interested in the subject today. Thank you for having me, Marilyn.
Cool. Well, we're always happy to have you. And I do a lot of things, life business coach, all of those things. I don't have my lower third because I'm on a new computer. I have to get it over to the new computer, but I am Marilyn Shannon. I'm easy to find. All you have to do is kind of go out there and look for me. I'm there. But anyway, um, I like to call somebody called me the listener, and I love that because that is what I do in everything that I do, and it's a connector. So, with that, I really want to get into this conversation about the pause. And Gail asked me, how did that come about? Because as you know, if you follow the show, these topics just come. They're not pre-planned. Or maybe they might be pre-planned sometime because it came like a bat out of hell and knocked me on the head and said, "Do this next." Or somebody said, "Oh, this is a great topic." So the way this came about, and before I do that, I want to say that there are several people who are not here, like Kehlani, and we want to send her our love. She's going to be moving back to the United States, and she'll be able to come back on. So we just miss her and Tracy Baker, and we send them our love. Um, so the pause. I was at a friend's house for dinner last week, and I was sitting there and telling her about a story, about something that occurred, and then something happened in a second. And I felt so blessed to be able to have listened, to be able to have gotten out of this situation what I got out, a message. And then I thought, wow, listening is a privilege. That's what came to me in this blip of a second. Listening is a privilege that we get to have, like breath. It's a privilege to breathe. It's a privilege to be able to listen. It's a God-given privilege. So I thought, wow, that's that's a pause. A pause is a privilege that we give ourselves. A pause, something happens or doesn't happen in a pause to be able to listen. I don't know if it's a prerequisite to listening. And maybe it doesn't matter. It just comes. And then I remembered about Eckhart Tolle, who I had seen in real life several years ago before his book actually came out, The Power of Now. And I remembered how important in his book the concept of the pause. And he used that sign that looked like an S, which is an editing sign, that people use in editing material. Katrina, have you seen that before? When you're
Yes.
editing a book?
Yeah.
What does it mean in editing?
The pause, like the paragraph sign, it is
Like
kind of
that
like
S
to
sign.
start a
What does it
paragraph
mean?
or something.
Say it again.
It's to start something new.
From this and start something new or regroup or
Yeah.
whatever. And he used it, and it was so, when I read that years ago, it was so powerful that I made it years ago. I didn't even know really as much as I know now, but it was connected to something. I made it one of my logos of some of my work because it made so much sense to stop, to listen to each other, to listen to ourselves, to listen to whatever, and take that pause to know what the truth is in any second or any moment, and how important that was. So that's how it came about in a nutshell. So for me, I think the pause can mean a lot, and I'm very excited to hear what you all have to say that will enlighten me even greater on how you see the pause, how you use it, or how we could learn. I had a conversation with Gail prior to the going online today, and oh my God, I said, wow, will you remind me about what we just talked about, because it was so great that I want to remember it for myself, for my everyday life. I think is so huge when we all get together. So why don't I start with Gail, since you and I had this little chat beforehand. Are you ready to come into the conversation, Gail?
Sure, why not?
So give a little background about, what we were talking about, because it was pretty cool.
Okay, I don't remember. I know you told me, remind me about this when we're on the show, but I don't remember. I'm sorry, I don't remember what it is.
Okay, so what we were talking about some things, and
Right.
we were talking about pausing, and I had always taken for granted, maybe, that pausing meant quiet.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Right? And then, so go ahead. What do you know now?
I don't remember a specific thing, but
Okay.
you were saying that you felt that a pause doesn't have to be quiet. You don't have to be quiet to take a pause. And I don't know. I think of pausing for myself is taking some quiet time so that I could tune into the listening.
Yeah, and what came up from the conversation that you and I had was, what I got in that moment, an aha, was that it can be like you and I were taking a pause. We were taking a break together. We were talking, but we were slow away from some of the noise, and we carved out a few seconds of our own. That, to me, became a pause. You didn't have to just be meditating in a room, or just say, okay, world, be quiet, let me just sit here and to take a moment. It was anytime you carve out a second. And that could be, even just now, this is a pause in the scheme of life, what we're doing.
Well, so when you say that, do you mean that a pause is taking a break from distractions or noise? Is that what you're getting at?
In one element, yeah. I mean, I'm sure we can take it deeper and greater and bigger as we talk. But yeah, that was an acknowledgement today that anytime you carve out something out of the ordinary, maybe, it becomes a pause. Time out. Right? Heidi. Hello. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, when you first named this title, to me as a musician came immediately this idea: music without pause is not music. Music without silence is not music. So the pause can be silence, but it can also be, going from loud to low volume. So if there is no, how can I say, the pause gives importance to what comes next in some way, and it structures the whole transmission, the whole things you are doing. If there was no pause, it would only be noise. It would be in writing the same thing, and in singing, and in music the same thing, everywhere. If it's all on the same level and without any way of, let's say, interruption, but in a gentle sense, you wouldn't even notice it anymore. It's like a noise which is all the time there. So if you want to understand and want to really live with the content, there must be pauses. There must be moments of higher intensity and low intensity, and even silence. Silence. There is the sound of silence. There is so important. So
yeah, that was a wonderful way to describe it, even coming from what Gail and I had shared, is lowering the volume. Her and I together lower, you know, you all and I together lower the volume. So, and listening to do that, listening to purposely take a pause, or listening for what comes out of the pause, the silence, listening to what you feel inside the pause, you know, listening for that transition, or experiencing that, listening for the experience in that transition from a piece of music to the next piece of music.
Yeah.
That's great.
Marilyn?
exactly.
Yeah.
And
Listen
Heidi?
for what comes. Yeah.
I loved Heidi's mentioning both music and writing to having rhythms to them. And if you're reading a score of music, there will be things that indicating these pause, these shifts. When we're looking at words, punctuation marks indicate different kinds of pauses. A period at the end of a sentence makes for a gap to a next whole thought. A comma is a little bit different kind of pause. A semicolon is a different kind of pause. And it also occurs to me when I look at poetry that's written on a page, the visual way that it's written, in other words, the words that come to the end and then we go down to the next line, those are also suggestive of pauses.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm reading poetry, I might breeze on right through, but then again, I might read a line and there's a word or there's something that registers in me so deeply. It's like before I go to the next line, I want to pause. I just want to drink that in. So I loved, Heidi, you're talking about the music and the writing and the rhythms and the shifts. Thank you.
So drinking it in is listening it in. Listening to the stop, you know, listening to the punctuation is listening it in to know what to do next. It tells you what to do next. It tells you to stop. It tells you to go. That's listening. Listening to those punctuations. So that was really another great extension and way of exploring. I mean, isn't it so interesting to you? Because it is to me. How you can take one word or a concept and make it so profound that it's just extraordinary. You know, and listening to it is what gives it those levels of depthness. So that was wonderful. Thank you, Elaine. Gail, did you have anything else to add?
Because I was shaking my head. Yeah, it's actually just hitting me now how profound it really is. The pause, you know, when we're exploring it in all these different directions. And I think, in a way, that's what the problem with society is today, is that people don't take a pause. Like, I'm just thinking of my nieces who are in their teens and with the social media and everything coming at you every second. And it's like people don't even know what that word means anymore. I mean, I'm thinking about my nieces in particular. Like, take a pause. They wouldn't even have a concept of why that's important, because so much is coming at us all the time. And personally, I'm actually taking a pause right now from my work. I'm slowing down a little bit. I'm just getting over, you know, just had a heavy-duty book launch, and I felt the need to take a pause. It was, yeah, it just was really like nonstop, 24/7, almost like mainlined into my computer, doing the social media, just everything that was surrounding the launch. And I was experiencing that for the first time. I never experienced this before, but normally what would feel really like fun, and I couldn't wait to get to my computer and do this and this and this and this, all these wonderful things, you know, promoting my book, whatever it is. It's fun. It fills me up. Now all this list that I had of things that I had to do, it was like there was like this veil between me and the fun. It's like too much. I have to stop. I have to take a pause. And so I'm exploring for myself now what does that really mean to take this pause? Marilyn and I were talking about that, taking a pause. Does it necessarily do any work at all? Or so I'm to what actually I need to do now while I take this pause, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And
Marilyn,
it's something, yeah, go ahead.
may I interrupt and just go to the office? It's like me going to the office. The comments, and welcome Nicole, Jeremy. These names will be familiar to you all. Mama Char and the lovely Coach G. Moore. But I also want to, they're in our audience, and thank you for your comments and being there. But this, Nicole has a comment here I want to highlight because it goes right along with what Gail was just saying. Can y'all see that? Hope so. We allow ourselves to stop our car to fill it up, refuel and recharge it to keep going, but we don't allow ourselves that same time and space to pause to refuel and recharge ourselves. Isn't that beautiful?
Yes. Thank you for that. That makes perfect sense, and along with what Gail was saying. And so a pause can be, it's a choice. It can be, just not having to fill up every space after somebody speaks. Normally I don't have to answer to everything everybody says, right? I could just sit back and give that. When Eckhart Tolle got up in front of a room of people to speak, he sat on a chair. And, I mean, many of us didn't even know who he was back then. He sat on a chair in this auditorium, said nothing for, it seemed like, endless. I mean, he was the keynote speaker, said nothing, just sat there and looked around. And, I mean, nothing. For at least, I don't know, maybe it was 5 minutes, maybe it was 2 minutes. But I'd never seen anybody do that. They usually come out and fill up the room. He said nothing. He gave a transition. He allowed everybody just to be uncomfortable in the silence, to regroup. It was one of the most magnificent, memorable experiences I've ever had. So we can do whatever we want with that pause. It's a huge thing. I mean, we can take it in our lives. I mean, Gail can take it for a day. She could take it just for an hour. She doesn't have to, I mean, people think sometimes that it means like completely disengaging. It doesn't. Maybe it's when you get into a habit, today, a little bit tomorrow, that works for you. So it's in any way we want to do it. Or it's in not filling up every space with something being said or something being done.
Marilyn, may I ask a question at this point, please?
Yeah.
How important, and I want the panel to address this if they fail to, because many are coaches and you are involved in some way in teaching, either by intention or other people observing you. When you are conveying a message and it's something the person has said, I want to know this in teaching, how important is the pause once you have a teaching moment? And you pause to allow the other person, and that's what you were just talking about. Exactly, am I right? Okay, good.
Exactly.
It's very important to learn to pause and not overwhelm them, but give them time to absorb and possibly react. I want to know if y'all agree with that. Anybody else?
Yeah, Katrina, why don't you answer to that? Because you're with people all the time, and it's really important, so that's really cool.
Yeah, I think, the thing that keeps popping into my mind is that listening, you're really listening into the presence when you're listening to a pause, right? You're giving people an opportunity to really not only let something sink in, but it gives you a moment in the pause to sort of read the room, right, as a teacher. And this is really even if you're spending time with people one-on-one as well. Yeah. But it gives you the opportunity to see if what you're saying lands. Sometimes we really need to give that person that space to sort of let it sink in, but more importantly, they may need you to explain it in a different way or give you some examples. And this gives you the opportunity as a teacher to sort of sort out what would best support the moment. And that's why, to me, when I'm pausing, I'm really listening into the presence of the moment. Not only for me personally, but for my students. And, another thing I wanted to add here is when you're really being, when you're really in tune with the pause of the moment, you're actually giving the other person a chance to show up. Because we're talking a lot about being pausing and at presence within ourselves, but we don't live life alone. We're connected with other people, and in order to build a connection that's very powerful, it's important for us to sort of have that pause with people as well. I think that's one of the things that we forget because we have a to-do list and we're really focused on moving ahead and getting things done, but taking that pause with someone. Marilyn was just talking about Eckhart Tolle and how he said nothing. He sat in that presence with all of those people and said nothing. Maybe we need to do that with the people we love in our lives too sometimes. Just take that moment and really be present with them and listen into that pause, because there's a lot of nonverbal cues happening in that moment, as well as expressions, or you're giving them the space to actually show up and say something that they may be uncomfortable or afraid to say. So to me, the pause is just as much the work that we do with ourselves and sort of appreciating that space for ourselves, as well it is when we're connecting with other people.
Thank you. That was wonderful. That I really resonated with what you say, and we got a hashtag out of that. That was listening into the pause. Someone in the comments, please hashtag listening into the pause.
That was good. Yeah, that was a great question. That was a great answer, because the pause is about hearing the truth of what was just said. That's part of that's part of how we describe the pause, is hearing the truth in what was just said, and that is for you. So, yeah, that was beautiful. That was great. Thank you, Sheila. That was great. Anybody else want to add to that?
Yes, please.
Go right ahead.
I would like to notice some of the things that goes on when a person heals some of the issues that they have, and when in the healing process of healing some traumas, there needs to be a pause. If there is no pause, these problems cannot be solved, because the person cannot access the energy that blocks them. And if they pause and look at it, the natural healing inside of each person is kicking in and helping them. And sometimes they need a little hand holding to actually holding that space open for the pause, to stop the chattering mind and all of those things that goes on like a radio station in most people. So if we don't pause and turn down the radio channel inside, we cannot actually access what's stopping us from becoming our true self and living our mission and having a great life, but also to be a great friend and a great part of a community. I think this topic, Marilyn, is amazing about the pauses, and it's very, very important. So thank you for bringing that up, and I want to acknowledge everyone who is here. I'm so delighted. Thank you.
Well, it's lovely to have you. You're a lovely addition. Thank you for what you just said, and so I want to keep bringing it back to the word listening. So listening to pause. You listen for the message to pause. You listen for what's in the pause. You listen for what you take out of the pause. You listen for what you do with what you take out of pause. That's how listening is involved with all of these things. You listen to the response you get from somebody from the pause. You listen to how you feel in being in the pause. That's what listening is. You're listening for all of those signals, signs, messages, silence, everything. So whenever we talk here, we may not use the word listening in everything we say, but it is all about the listening. Sheila, the chats, from the comments, from yourself.
They're absolutely wonderful and I'm far too busy reading them to share with y'all, apparently.
Well, isn't that being
But I do
selfish?
want to. It would be, and I'm going to fix that right now. From Nicole, thanks so much for the shout out and focusing on my post. You're most welcome. It was a wonderful post comment. And hello to everyone else. Very happy to be here, and we are so happy that you are here. Thank you, Nicole. Coach G. Moore is agreeing with Heidi about Hangout Queen from Denver. That tells me that who would y'all think they might be talking about? That would be Mia Voss, and if Heidi's comment about her olive farm explains. I said again. I said I wasn't going to do that. And we have someone new in the audience. I do not know how to pronounce this name. I want someone here to give a try. Sudesh.
Sudesh Solanki.
Yes, welcome. We're so glad to have you.
And Sudesh has responded. If I remember correctly, Sudesh has come several times, but not into the comment stream, or maybe has not been able to watch live. So if this is who you are, we are delighted. I am delighted. We are delighted that you're here. And if this is not who you are, we are delighted and grateful and so happy that you are here. So whichever way it is, thank you so much for being here, and it's nice to see you. Is there anything else, Sheila?
Marika is also here, and I am not familiar. If this is your second time, please forgive me. But I remember your picture, either from this Hangout for another one or another one, so we're glad you're here too. Hello back to you.
So I'm going to ask everyone who's listening, who is commenting, to give us some of your experience that you've had lately, that you can recall in being in a pause, that you've had a pause. What has come out of that pause for you? Love to hear your comments, your experiences, and we're going to certainly make time for you, so please share them. And if you're not in the comments and you would like to be, please do so. And if you don't want, that's cool too. We'd love to hear from you no matter what. So Heidi. Hey Heidi. So,
yeah, now I'm unmuted.
So what are you observing about yourself now in talking about and as we share about the pause? What's coming up for you?
For me, what we are doing now for me is a pause. It is, before I was hyper excited by doing our connection show before, and now it's sort of coming down, being in a different way engaged, as I have no responsibility and I can listen to you, I can listen to the others, so it's sort of getting more grounded in myself. And I can even do multitasking because I did some comments here, but it is harmoniously going into it. It is like a calm way of being in which I feel myself, and it's very awake at the same time. This is a nice feeling.
And that's very interesting because Heidi and Marguerite have just come from doing their show, so they needed time to kind of catch their breath. They caught it here. And how interesting is it? So yes, engaged. So in the pause, you can be engaged. Doesn't mean that you're like toast. You're still active, which is really an important thing to remember. And the interesting thing is, as we talk about this notion, this concept of pause, I can feel some different energy in our film strip, in our show today. Sometimes all over the place. Today there is a calmness, and it's just something that's come up since we're talking about this word. Isn't it interesting to recognize how, without knowing it, it's the effect it's had just by its power. So
it's a very astute observation, Marilyn, and it's very true that it has had a calming effect. I didn't notice it until your observation.
I didn't notice it either until Heidi just said it. Heidi, you said it, right?
Yeah.
She said it about herself. Were you saying it just for yourself or about everybody?
When you ask me this question, I would say I thought only for myself. But then when you said it, I noticed that it's everybody also seeing the faces, you know? They're sort of
That's right.
relax.
Wow, because
Good.
that just came to me in whatever slit there was of listening. You know, that just hit. So thank you, Sheila. Thank you, Heidi. Thank you, everybody, because I needed a pause. It's been a big day.
Marilyn,
Yeah.
I loved that. I think it was Nicole used the word refuel that occurs during the pause. And as I was thinking about the word refuel, there was a U right in the middle of refuel, and there's a U right in the middle of pause. And I like to think of that U as a wonderful cup. You know, if we're reaching, we're just pausing, we're just putting our arms up in that moment of quiet receptivity. It's wonderful. I do notice for myself, there are lots of times, though, I have a lot of resistance to pausing, a lot of resistance to pausing. And as I was reflecting on this topic this morning, the title of Andy Lyons, one of our sister Hangout hosts, she has a show that's called Possibility Partners. And I was thinking of that, and I then thought, pausability partners. We have the ability to pause, and sometimes it's in community that we find it easier to pause, like right now, and this is such a blessing. And we're all noticing the calming and the clarity that's coming forth. And being the word player that I am, because I listen to my muses when they show up, if I create the space, it's entirely, we can get into the plausibility space that we can pause and just add L to pausability, L being love and L being listening. It can be plausible that we can pause and have that.
Point out, if I may, being a resistor, going back to some of your other wordplay from another HOA, what should one do when one is being a resistor?
One should call out to one's sister.
And you just said that in the group that's what we were doing. If you're a resistor, get a group of your sisters. I remember that, and I thought of that as you were talking. So your wordplay lives on from show to show.
I'd like to jump in here for a second because I really wanted to say how difficult it was for me to give myself permission to pause, and I like to think of myself as somebody who takes good care of herself and, listens and whatever, But it was really hard because it was like, but that woman thing, but that, but. No, take a pause. And so it really has been difficult for me. So I have been reaching out to my sisters. I really have. I've been reaching out to different friends and talking about it, and getting easier. It's easier now. I'm doing it, and it's very needed.
I think Gail just paused with that sigh. Marilyn, Heidi has a Mama Char comment highlighted.
If I forget what Gail just said, or with Elaine, because there's some things in there that I want to pay attention to about the resistance.
Yes.
I don't want us to go away from that. So back to that if we forget. So what is this comment now?
Mama Char, Heidi, would you highlight it? Did that come up for everybody? I hope it did. My biggest pause came after losing my husband for 42 years and being alone for the first time since age 18, listening to my heart and accepting change through pain. Love that.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean that'll give you a pause, won't it?
Yeah, that was a huge pause.
And just so it's interesting, and I'm trying to listen to what's coming to me now, and it's so the resistance of something good, the resistance of something that we fear, or the resistance of pain, or of something good, or of good, can happen with anything. But when, like for today, when we notice what we're accomplishing, and I really, world, take this in, because this was not a planned experience. All we did was throw out the word pause. How we are, um, how we are affected by it was not planned. But so that tells you something about the resistance. So by even just saying the word pause does something, sends a message. So if you, in your day to day, if you just said, okay, I'm going to take a pause right now, make it small, or don't make it huge. Just let it be what it has to be. Let it speak to you in whatever way it's going to speak. And sometimes we think it has to be, like we said earlier, like it has to be this big thing. Just say, I'm just going to take a second here. Just a second. I don't know if it's the Dalai Lama or who said, when the phone rings, just let it ring for a second before you run to get to it. Practice pausing, meaning practice putting one foot in front of the other. And just be conscious of that action of putting one foot in front of the other, or of the feeling of not running for the phone as soon as I mean, I don't know about you, but as soon as that phone rings, I can't get it. I don't know how many times I've dropped my phone because I've gone to get it too quickly, you know? So maybe just practicing that whatever comes in action in those seconds helps to, what you resist persist, right? So if you are resisting, you're focusing on the resisting, so whatever you're doing is going to persist. So just little by little adding something else. I hope, I know that's what I'm going to do. That's how I can manage it. Who had something? Go ahead. I know somebody has something to say. Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
This talk you did just now, it's like a meditation. Your pitch of your voice, it came in like a hypnotherapist's voice, and I felt like, ah. And it
You
wasn't the words you said, it was the tone of voice you had, this calm, nice place, da da da. Like, it wouldn't matter really what words you said, but it was the note, the tone, and then the confidence. I felt your heart, Marilyn. I really could feel your heart. It was amazing. I had like expanding inside. It was lovely, and I want to thank also Gail, who was a little bit like, couldn't answer your question right away, but she made a great comeback. And she was calmer and composed. And I just love you, Gail.
Thank you very much. I'm not even remember what you're talking about.
But that's listen. That's the real deal. If it's coming from the heart, it's spontaneous. It is not programmed from your head. So if somebody asks you to remind them, or if you're trying to, if somebody says, well, what did you just say? Half the time, I'm not going to remember, because it's in those flooding of that information that's coming in that moment. So that's a compliment. And I just want to say thank you for what you said. I have no idea what I said. All I knew was that I was listening to whatever was coming out of my, I mean, and I felt the same way you did about me, and that's shocking. Because that's
Isn't
listening in
it
action.
amazing? Isn't it amazing when it's turning on a different channel. It's like the chatter brain goes on all day. We're going to do this and going to do this and going to do this and and then when you did that with your voice, a different channel was turned on. And you notice everyone in the panel here, and I think the listeners too, could feel it. I certainly felt it for myself.
This is listening in action. This is the practice of listening, trusting, inviting, as Katrina has often said, the privilege of not being scared by, I'm the privilege of not worrying about what's coming out and just allowing it to be, the privilege of listening with Gail's retracting, the privilege of all of this. This is so Katrina, you had something to say.
I just want to pop in here real quick and go back to what Gail was saying about permission, because I do feel that the mental part of us gets caught up and doesn't really provide that permission for us to take that pause. And it reminded me of something that I scheduled it to tweet. I'm not sure if it tweeted out yet, but it was basically a little online software thing that would come up every 30 minutes on your computer. So it's like a website that will remind you to pause. So after 30 minutes of work and focus, it shows up a pretty little picture. It kind of, I wouldn't say dominates your screen, but it pops into the center of your screen and says, go take a coffee break, or it'll show you a picture of a butterfly. It sort of gives you that permission when you're in the flow to take that very nourishing, necessary pause. Because you're right, we're so busy with things, it's really a challenge sometimes to give ourselves that permission. So that's a way that's easy, and it's, if you're on the computer, what a simple and interesting way to go about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think as you listen for what you've gained already. So as you practice these things that we talk about, you listen for what you've already accomplished. So you listen for how it felt to pause. You listen for how much stronger you feel when you come back from the pause. And then you tuck it away and go, cha-ching, so that next time, oh yeah, that's what that does for me. Oh, I'm going to do that again. So we have another comment, right?
Yeah, this is a comment from Jeremy Murphy. I don't know if you can see it on the screen. And he says, try unplugging your phone for an hour a day to charge it. Then listen to the sound of silence.
That's great. Thank you, Jeremy. Jeremy, we love having you. I don't know if there's other men that are commenting, but I love it when you're here. So thank you. And I love to respond you're coming. Yeah, I mean, I had this issue with my computer. I bought a new computer. So I had to give my new computer and my old computer to the computer man. And let me tell you something. That was freedom. Loved it. Loved it. Loved it. I had my phone, but I know I can't do that. I made an excuse that I couldn't do the same things on my phone that I could do on my computer. And I'll tell you something, I love that excuse.
She's using it to her advantage.
Say that again?
You are using that to your advantage. Way to go. May I highlight a comment from Nicole here, which I think is just really, really nice. She says, allowing ourselves to pause is extremely difficult. I agree, because we tend to think that pausing is not an action. Isn't that powerful? Congratulations for doing that action, Gail Harris. That's a great comment. Thank you, Nicole.
I just thought about and think about this. No matter what we're doing, we're always breathing. So we're always in life. We're always in some action, no matter what it is. So right? We're always in action. So pausing is just looks different. It's giving us the time, the space to regroup, to take in something, to let something out. It's always we're always in that movement. Of, so who else? Any other comments out there?
You will want to also include uh, Coach G. Moore, our
Yes.
other gentleman, commenting, and we love him having here too. Jerry, you
Yes.
mentioned loving having Jeremy here and Coach G. Moore.
So
Shout out to him.
yeah, and I'd like to know from the gentlemen that are in the comments, what do the information that we're sharing or what we're doing, how do they feel about what we're doing, and how do they think we could incorporate more men or invite more men to these conversations? Do they have any comments about that for future shows even? Like, how can we get more men involved? Because, we're chipping away at the world. So how do we get more people, more men involved in our conversations? Because this is not just for women only. This is for this is for all souls. And I'd love to hear what they have to say.
Marilyn, are you saying you would like the male point of view?
In everything.
I would too. I would like that too.
I don't think it can be different. It's just they're not ready. They maybe haven't gotten to being able to discuss it yet. But it can't be different. If we're digging into the same hole that they would be digging into. I mean, we're digging down. That's where they got to go. Everybody's got to go to the same place. So I would love to know, how do we get them here to help them dig with us? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
We're going down. Everybody's down is the same. We're all going into the universal information, into our soul. Souls, I don't think are just one. We're just one. The context. So there is the context of information is what we all tune into. It's that universal love, that. The content is where we vary. Life, our experiences, maybe our gender, our culture, our fears. That's the content. But the context is where we want to go to too. And the content is where we're digging to get this enlightenment, this understanding, these words to explain what we're about or how we're learning.
Marilyn, just
Yes.
a minute ago, you mentioned breathing, and it is probably the simplest way, taking a brief pause to just get ourselves centered. And once again, breathe, rearrange the letters and breathe, or you find all the letters for heart in the word breathe, or be at the heart.
Wow.
And so breathing is probably the simplest way to make a pause. And even when I have difficulty keeping focused on my breathing, lately I've been doing like alternate nostril breathing, because it just keeps me active enough to maintain my focus. There's lots of ways to breathe, but yeah, breathe in the pause.
Great. I think, Sheila, you could do that with anything and go, wow, that was cool. So what's the next comment?
There's a comment from the Hangout Queen, Mia Voss, and she says, your suggestion is to bring Coach Timo in on every conversation, and with the hashtag, he's the man for all women. This sounds amazing, isn't it? Thank you, Mia.
That was great.
wonderful.
Thank you. Well,
That was exactly the one I was going to bring up. Thank you, Heidi.
Well, good. That was a good one. So we'd love to invite him into the film strip, and anybody. I mean, I would love to see people come in who have not been in before. Mia, if you are interested, we'd love to have you in as well, because you certainly, I've listened to Mia before, and she's a really good listener.
Yes, she is.
She's a really good listener. She doesn't miss too many tricks. And I listened to her a while ago when she was talking about having, which I thought was really cool, because you wouldn't find me on a gaming site. But she heard something in that gaming site that she could use for something else. And so that's the idea, is maybe that's not your world, but there's something in that world that you can take to your world that you wouldn't have gotten had you gone to the other world. And that's listening. And that's listening. She carved out something amongst the noise to get something that she needed. And so she's a really good listener. And I would love to have her come on if she's ready to, or anybody out there. It'd be our pleasure. So who else has something else to add to this notion of pausing that's coming up for you now? Because everything happens in real time here. So what's coming up for? Go ahead, Marguerite. Go.
Yeah, and this is the notion that I've heard it somewhere, when we breathe slower, we live longer. So somewhere it said that you can only have so many breaths in each lifetime. But if we inhale and exhale instead of, we actually live longer. Think about it. You oxygenate, your body is more healthier at the same time. So the breathing is completely essential for us to actually communicate. And we even use the air coming out when we're using our vocal cords, right? But the thing is to connect that to the brain and say, okay, let me pause right now and see what anyone else has to say.
So that was really great. And let me tell you something that came up then, is that we then get to, in some way, manage time. Because when we play with our breath, we are expanding time. I know you're all thinking about that, right? Or not? What do you think?
Let me tell you what I'm thinking about. That you are absolutely right. And Mia Voss has just come on and said, now I'm as #red as Coach G's shirt, because she made that suggestion, and he said he was red as my shirt. You should see me. I'm a hot mess, but I'll come in for a few. No, ma'am, you will not, because we're at the end of the show, and you deserve much more time, but you will be on the show. We'll talk later. I'll message you. That's all I wanted to say.
Well, you know what? That's great, and I want to tell everybody, next time anybody's listening to the show, a little, we're almost ready to get off the air, but if you want to come in before we get off the air, we'd love to have you spontaneously pop in.
Beautiful.
That will be just great with us, because spontaneity, I mean, when you listen, it doesn't matter. It's perfect. So that's perfect. You just come on in. We'd love to have you. So Mia, yes, we'd love to have you, and anybody else.
And Coach G Moore.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. They're going to have to build a new hangout for us.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. So how much more time do we have?
One minute left. Everybody run through. Yeah.
Yes.
Run through quickly.
Real quick. Just say something that you have coming up. Just give us the nuts and bolts. A workshop, a book, a launch, nuts and bolts. Heidi, go.
Yeah, nuts and bolts. Next week, Wednesday, my new show, The Hangout, The Wisdom Factory, and I will have the Hangout Queen Mia Voss as guest, and Lisa Angus and another friend of mine, and we're talking about women in leadership.
Great. Elaine?
Hi. I'm hosting the Holy Shift Show. It's most Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, And it's looking like the topic next week is going to be on feeling and experiencing family, new family, in the connections we make on G+.
Cool. Gail.
Thanks. I have a book that just came out, which is my co-author's memoir entitled Finding Zoe. And there's been a lot of talk about it. If anybody's interested in reading it, the Reading Room, which is a G+ community, has actually selected it as their read of the month for November. So if you're interested, get in contact with Aslan Bloor or check into the Reading Room, and you can join us there. And I also wanted to share that this coming Monday, I'm going to be a guest on Marilyn's internet show, another show that she has called Breaking Free, and I'm so excited about it.
Cool.
And I'm going to be talking about Finding Zoe and also my experience with writing the book.
It's like literally finding Zoe. I mean, that's literally what we're going to talk about, not just how Zoe was found, but how she found this whole concept with Finding Zoe. Katrina, what about you?
You can check creativekatrina.com. I blog about creativity and mindfulness and digging into that juicy self-expression, and I blog twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays, so check that out.
And Marguerite?
Yes, I am launching my new program, Your Healing Journey, and go to thecrystallotus.com, that is thecrystallotus.com, and sign up for the live free webinars.
Cool. And Sheila?
I will be busy with my students as much as I need to be, but after that, it looks like I will be listening to wonderful Hangouts on Air by my friends because they all sound fabulous. Absolutely fabulous.
Thank you. And I do a lot of things, but the one thing I want to mention is I'm going to start a group coaching that will also encompass some private coaching as well. And it's going to be called the Listening Laboratory. I have an entire learning modules about listening and different experiences, and then we'll process them together, and then I will privately coach. So with that, everyone, it's been an absolute delight to share this pause with you all. I will never be the same again. I never am. But it's been great because my life's been kooky today, and when I got here, it's been just amazing. So thank you all very much. Thank you, everyone that's been listening, commenting, observing. We love having you here. We'll be here next week with I don't know what. I'll let you know as soon as I know. And with that, have a wonderful weekend. And just be the pause, be the pause, be the pause. That's a new one. Be the pause. Bye.